everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Breaking Even with Al Paton, hosted by me, Al Paton. This is the new weekly show on the official SuperCoach AFL podcast feed, and this is your show. Each week I'll be joined by the finest SuperCoach minds to answer your questions, and there are plenty of questions that need answers with the first lockout of the 2025 SuperCoach season, just 15 days away, which is inducing a slight amount of panic. But there is plenty to get through on today's show. We've got some injury news, lots of injury news. We'll give our best SuperCoach smokies for the year, and we have one official Amy series game to talk about. And here to talk about it with me is Patch. Patch, assume you're booking holidays for September already after that Bombers performance?
The lid is off, Al. Isaac Kako's kicking 100. Harry Jones is going to win the Norm Smith, Zach Merritt Brownlow. It's all happening. The lid is off, and I will find it in about 20 minutes when I realise that it was a preseason game. And nothing matters. Nothing, it's fine. But it was nice to have some excitement. Up and about. Footy is back. Oh, it's exciting.
It's exciting. Tim Mitchell, another reason why it's exciting is because Tim Mitchell is with us. Tim, what did you take from last night's game?
It's been a big week, hasn't it, Al? I sort of toed and froed with Isaac Kako during the preseason. I'm like, do I want a small forward from the Bombers? Do I want to pay $150K for him or the best part of? And yeah, confirmed that we have to have him, really. Wasn't that sold on Sam De Koning, so I'm probably looking at a few other options there. But yeah, looking forward to these other games as well, which as we record, we sort of haven't seen too much. But yeah, it's been a tough week for Chloe and I with the Jagger Smith news, which we're still getting over, and a lot of rejigging for super coaches on the back of that, and the fact that Sardal Hawley looks like he's a VFL player to start the year as well.
Yeah, no, Chloe was actually interstate when that Jagger Smith news came out, so a big effort from her to return home. I thought we might not see her for 12 months, but Chloe, great to have you on board, and yeah, I mean, how are you feeling?
Yeah, you know what, it was a tough decision to be like, you know what, I do have to go home and I do have to remove Jagger Smith from my Supercoach team. So I'm not feeling good about that. There's a whole host of injuries at Carlton, but if we're going to be talking about the Dons and the Cats, then there was plenty of interesting things there. For me personally, the one that stood out was Mitch Nevitt. I was expecting a little bit more based on the eye test, if I'm being honest.
Dan Patton's been talking him up. I thought 150 surely.
But I'm not 100% sold that there is enough there. He's feeling like a little bit of a sub-risk for me at the moment, just with considering who was out for the Cats last night. But as we keep saying, it's just pre-season, so it's just something to keep your eyes on. I will try my best not to overreact to that.
Yeah, so what about all the 220-odd teams that called moves like Jagger for season 2025? Like, we knew that was going to be a pretty popular team name, and I think we've seen a million headlines already this preseason since Jagger Smith got drafted to the Blues. But back to the drawing board now. I think there is a way, if you go into your account, you can hit the edit button and change your team name. But
go Waco for Kako? Yeah, is that just a straight swap?
Yeah, those 220 have got to come up with something more creative for the rest of the season now.
Yeah, we'll get into the injuries in a second, but just anything further from last night? I mean, obviously, Essendon rookie, we can nearly feel our bench with Essendon players, the way the cheapies are shaping up, or you probably want a couple of them on field. And the other one is just Sam De Koning. When I saw him starting in the ruck, I thought, here we go, this could be a bargain for us in defence. But the way that all played out, I just don't think I can go there. Like,
No.
basically 50-50 sort of, maybe 60-40 ruck split with Mark Blitzhalves. And he got annihilated basically by Sam Draper and Nick Bryan, which is not exactly, Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy.
Yeah. Enough of that.
I'm not sure how long the Cats will stick with that. And
they did come out post-game. I think one of the assistants spoke to Dan Batten after the game and said, they plan to roll Reece Stanley through for some games, and he wouldn't be far off. And it's just I could never trust myself picking a Geelong ruckman, and I think that's. Even if the scoring was there, it's still a bit scary, and the scoring didn't look there against the really, really tough guys. Scoring didn't look there against, they're tough guys. Yeah, sure, I said it. I'm going to own it.
Didn't Lloyd Meek absolutely maul him the week before as well?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think
the signs are there, but he's not a long-term ruckman.
No, and if you're getting held up
by... He might play 10 games there, but yeah, just I can see that blowing up for anyone that picks him, sadly.
Yep. And in terms of the Essendon cheapies, Chloe, who did you like there? I mean, Kako, obviously, I think is going to be in just about 100% of teams after that performance, and Sardis pretty much locked himself in as well, I think. And also, I think another one or two Essendon defenders we could potentially pick as well.
Yeah, I like the look of both Jackson Pryor and Zach Reid. I can't fit Pryor in at the moment just at that slightly more expensive rookie price, but I've slotted Zach Reid in on my bench for James Leake just for a little bit more surety. I loved what I saw from Zach Reid last night. I think it was 72 Supercoach points that he ended up on, so that would be great if he could just please stay fit. But Elijah Sardis as well is one who I was umming and ahhing about. His efficiency still wasn't the best last night, but I think it was enough to sell me on him as a pick. He is in my flex position at the moment.
Yeah, like it.
Yeah, Lewis Hayes played as well, who I was very keen to see in action. Got a very stern lesson from Jeremy Cameron, but 119k in defence. Watch and see in opening round if he's there ahead of Jaden Laverde or if Mason Redmond pushes him out. But certainly don't lock him into your plans just yet, was the other Essendon rookie, I think, there.
Oh, I guess the other news was that Sardell Hawley wasn't there, so he's still in plenty of Supercoach teams, but played in the VFL and seems like he's not quite in the best 22-23 to start the year.
Yeah, Tom Edwards in the same boat, kicked a bunch of goals in the VFL and played a quarter of AFL, but don't see him there round one, and if he is, he'll be the sub, I reckon.
Yeah, 99k. Tempted a tiny bit. But we better get into some injury news. So every week we will do a regular injury report, and HBF has signed on to sponsor that for us for the year. So welcome aboard. That's great news, and there's absolutely jam-packed this week already. We mentioned Jagger Smith out for the year. That's terrible. Then we just had some breaking news just before we came on. Brodie Grundy limping off at Sydney training with some kind of knee issue. So very, very early days there, but we're all, checking the Supercoach. Who else have Sydney got in the ruck? Because their stocks aren't super deep in that position, but Peter Laddams, I think, is still floating around 262k. So just maybe one you could look at. If
Joel Amati season. The Amati party.
Is seriously injured and out for a little while. Then we had Bailey Smith didn't play last night, but Stephen King assured Dan Batten that he's definitely going to play in opening round. So at least we'll get to see him then before round one. No such luck though. Callum Mills, plantar fasciitis. He's out until at least Sydney's round 3 bye. So that throws my defence into disarray for sure. Zach Butters out. There's another one I'm going to have to replace. Some kind of knee issue there. Got a knock at training, I think, and he won't play round 1, and we're not sure when he'll be back. The other one that had us making changes when it came through a couple of days ago, Tim, was Mark Pittonet. Talk about him having some kind of calf injury. So you think, hang on a moment, this just opens the door for Tom De Koning to ruck solo, which is what we've all been praying for. Is he now straight into your team, or is it not quite that simple?
Yeah, I was going a bit crazy earlier in the week, Al. I had Liam Reedy at R2 at one point and thought, I'm going to get away with going cheaper here. Harry Boyd might actually be the ruckman because, there's a bit of word around that Rowan Marshall potentially struggling to get to the line for round 1. So I think if you were going to go down that path, you'd probably go Harry Boyd at R2 rather than Liam Reedy, because what we've seen of Reedy so far suggests that his scoring is not going to be great. So I can understand people that maybe want him in the flex, but as soon as that news came through about Pittonet, straight back to TDK. He's my R2 next to Tristan Cherry. I don't want to muck around. I think we saw Tom De Koning's huge ceiling when he was one out as a ruckman last year, and who knows when Mark Pittonet is going to be back, and you'd suspect that he's probably going to have to work his way back through the VFL. But two other popular players on the injury list as well. Bailey Dale potentially not going to be in the Bulldogs side round 1, and then Ed Richards also with a calf complaint too. He's sort of racing the clock to be there in round 1 as well. So there might be some pretty important flow-on effects there for guys like Joel Frazier and Riley Sanders as well. You'd think Sanders probably gets a pretty big opportunity if Ed Richards is out of the midfield early on in the season.
Well, Chloe, actually, you spoke to Tom De Koning this morning, didn't you? What was the hot goss?
That was yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday. Days are meaningless and blurring together, but what was the hot goss?
Well, from my perspective and what I could gather, the whole general vibe seems to be that he was, which is kind of what the word on the street was anyway prior to this time, was that he was training as if he was going to be spending a little bit more time forward. So this isn't what he has said. This is what I've gleaned based on what he has said and based on, all the other preseason news, is just that I wouldn't be so sure that Pittonet won't come straight back into the AFL side, as in I don't think he would necessarily come back through the VFL. Let's just say it gets to round 2 and he comes back in, then what does that mean for De Koning? I think that what it does mean is that much to some Carlton supporters won't like this news, but I do think that Pittonet does come in and he does play a role, which I know is not what people might necessarily want, but I think it is what the plan is from a Carlton perspective. If it's all systems go, I think that plan does include Pittonet in some capacity. So I would just say to proceed with caution. I did do the same thing as everyone else and bring Tom De Koning into my team. But I do have a little bit of trepidation just because, you know, if you're relying heavily on that, he, of course, will most likely make some good cash even in 2 rounds. But you do have to weigh up your options where if Pittonet does come back and he does play some more time forward, maybe it's not the best option. So I would proceed with caution would be my
Just got to get to round 5. Just got to get to round 5 when they play the Eagles, and he'll score 180 that day, and whatever happens before that won't matter.
Yeah, round 1 against Richmond looks pretty tempting as well. It'll be hard to leave him out if he is named as the solo ruck for that one. And the other thing that happened in the last couple of days, we've had a bunch of late signings for the SSP period. So Dan and the Phantom got together yesterday for a special Rookie Bible pod. So go and check that out or watch it on Code Sports YouTube. They ranked all the rookies and they talked about some of these cheap SSP guys too, which although I suppose Jai Culley's one who's not the 99K, but he's one you could potentially look at Melbourne. So there's a few other names there to throw into the rookie conversation. But before we get into questions from the listeners, and there are plenty of those, we just wanted to talk about our smokies for 2025. So we've picked one each. And Patch, do you want to kick us off? Who's someone with sort of trying to define a smokie as someone with very low ownership who is probably not that expensive, but we think can make a heap of money for us this year in Supercoach?
Yeah, a guy that's not been on as many radars as I thought, considering the hype around Hockball last year and just how much talent he has in his he has. Josh Weddle is one that I've been looking at very closely, and especially for people that maybe have a little bit of cash left over and are looking to replace Callum Mills at 394K, 3% owned. I went back and looked at his games last year and tried to figure out which games he'd played key defence and which games he'd played kind of more freely. And kind of he had 2 games against Jeremy Cameron where he was lined up on Cameron all day and got pretty towed up by the best forward in the comp for a 55 and a 23 in those games. But I then went through and the games he scored a hit out or recorded a hit out, 106, 73, 88, 84, 115, 75, 55, and 91 for an average of 85. And I'm just wondering, you know, they've obviously added some key defensive stocks in Josh Battle and Tom Barras. Does that free him up? Does he play more of a halfback? Does he play in a wing? Does he play that chop-out ruck role? And is that enough to make him an option? If he's 100K cheaper, then absolutely. But I don't know. I'm keeping an eye on him and we'll be watching him very closely during the Hawks preseason match in Tassie.
Did you say he had a hit out? Is that what you said? I heard that right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He played backup ruck here and there. He just pinched hit in the ruck.
Def ruck, okay. I'll take that.
So I don't think he'd get DPP, but if he does play that kind of very almost Hayden McLeany kind of chop out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A bit of a Cripps ruckman.
Yeah, maybe a Cripps ruckman.
Because I was hiding behind the couch during the Hockball revolution and not wanting to take any part in it. I must have missed that, Patch.
No, we have some very vocal Hawthorn fans in the office who did not let me forget about the existence of Josh Weddle. So shout out to them.
Annoying football fans, you can get those too.
Chloe, I think you've got another one down in defence. Mine is in defence too, actually. But who have you got for us?
Yeah, well, you know, why not? Because we're all struggling a little bit in our backline. So I just thought I would throw this smokie on the table, which I have spoken about a little bit on X before, and it is Jacob Blight at 246.4K. So in his 3 games last year, he scored 50, 86 and 60, which, considering that he was a mid-season pickup, I think that there's some pretty good scores to kind of kick off with. He was obviously at a much cheaper price this year, but I think his price point at the moment is still not bad, seeing that his ceiling in the Waffle and in the VFL seems to be pretty good. So in the Waffle, he averaged 100 Supercoach points, and at the moment his break-even is only 46, and we know how often the ball may be spending a lot of time back there in the Richmond backline. Round 20 versus Sandringham as well, he got 32 disposals, 11 intercept marks, which equates to 140 Supercoach points. And the plus side, he's only 1.8% owned as well. There's no Bolter to start off with, no Tyler Young, no Josh Gibkiss, and Dylan Grimes obviously retired. So I just think that there is a good role there for him. Yes, it might not last the distance, but if we're just looking for a bit of a stepping stone, a bit of a cash gen, I think he's a good shout.
What do you reckon he can average?
I don't know. If I look at those scores from last year, I think he could probably do a bit better just based on the current circumstance of the team. So I'd be hoping for around 70, but I think that he could definitely average more.
Yeah, I would put it around there. I don't mind that at all. And the teams are out for the Tigers play tonight as we're recording on Wednesday against Collingwood in the Amy series, and he has been picked in the back line ahead of someone like Jacob Kaczynski, who's been training there all year. So I think he won the time trial even when they came back from Christmas. So, so he's had a good pre-season. And,
training the house down.
Exactly. I don't mind that at all. And, as you said, in defence, we are scratching around. I think, Tim, you might have a defender as well, do you?
Yeah, but I've gone rogue and picked 2, so I'll throw something a bit different on the table. I was going right down to the bottom of the ownership numbers and trying to come up with like an Uber breakout pod, and I don't know, like I feel like Marge Simpson with the potato patch. Like I just feel like this guy's neat, and I can't justify it for much more reason than that. But I've always been a fan of Josh Worrell from the Crows. I just think he's a good player. Like maybe it's seeing that sort of elegance of a player swing onto their left foot and kick the ball long. And we know that good kicking is good Supercoach, and Josh Worrell uses it really well. I think he went at 83% by foot last year. His disposal numbers improved from I think 14 a game, to almost 18 disposals a game, and he had 6 intercepts a game last year as well. And the other number that stands out, you know how much I love guys that take kick-ins, Al, and he had at least 3 kick-ins in 10 of his 12 games. So I think he averaged mid-80s last year, but he's the type of guy that his average went from 75 to 85 last year, and I can see him taking another step again. I think the Crows are going to improve a lot this year. I was saying even late last year that I thought they'd be a top 4 contender this year, and I'm pretty confident they're going to play finals. So I think with a few more wins under the bank, Josh Worrell's the type of guy that could potentially take his average from 85 to 95 plus and find 10 points of value in his starting price for this year. But up the other end of the ground, like you all have probably heard me talk ad nauseum already about the fact that I think Riley Thilthorpe's going to win the Coleman, and he's 370k in the last 4 rounds in the last 4 rounds last year when he got going, he averaged 94.3 in Supercoach, and he's priced in the high 60s. So I think there could be a hell of a lot of value in Thilthorpe, and he's the type of guy that if he gets on a roll, especially early on, he could definitely push sort of top 8 or top 10 forward at 370k, which is sort of real value. I don't see any like real obvious names outside maybe that top 4 or 5 in the forward line, like Daniel McRae, Horne-Francis, Al, your boy. Rankin should be in that mix as well, and then you throw a blanket over the next group of guys, and I think Thilthorpe is definitely in that. So I'd probably pick him over someone like, I don't know, Brent Daniels or Jesse Hogan or one of those guys that is probably 100k more, but I think Thilthorpe could score just as well as those guys.
Will he do some rucking as well, potentially?
Maybe in that like Hawkins mould, like a bit of forward rucking.
Yeah, that'd give him a nice
Yeah, not really a question. He might, but no, Riley O'Brien plays 90+% of games, most games anyway, doesn't he? So I would suspect that that's probably going to be the case again.
Yeah, I don't mind him, and all aboard the Crom train in 2025.
I don't know why I'm so keen on the Crows.
You've been hanging out with the Phantom too much.
It probably means they're going to finish last, and Matthew Nicks will be in trouble by about round 6. But I don't know. Got a really good feeling about the Crows this year.
It's not doing much for our rivalry with the Phantoms, Lair. If we're getting on board, you have to sort of be like me and avoid all these South Australian players. But I've gone in defence as well. Really similar theory to what a lot of us are talking about with Mills going down. He's 350 odd K. Sam de Koning went in for a little while, and I don't think I'm going to have him for very long. So he's around the same price, 360k. And then some of the others I was looking at too, potentially replace them with a bit more expensive. With Matty Roberts, you got to get up to 430 for him. So Joel Frazier is, I think he's still a smokie at 1.9% owned, even though we did touch on him already. I did do this before that Bailey Dale news, but I guess that is a bit of a question mark because Frazier was just about best on ground apparently in the practice match the other day, but Bailey Dale didn't play, so you'd want to see them in the same team. But last year, Frazier was obviously a great rookie for us, averaged 68. And in round 24, playing with Dale in the team, he had 29 disposals, 13 marks, and 136 Supercoach. So just shows what his potential is. I'm not expecting him to do that every week. But one stat that stood out to me, and Tim's touched on it already, the kick-ins. He took 2 kick-ins for the entire season last year, Joel. So you just need to get a bit more, selfish, get back to that ball bag and before Bailey Dale, because we know he loves to sprint back there and grab it. But, if you could maybe get a couple more kick-ins, that'd help his average go up a little bit. And at 370k, yeah, I mean, I'm sort of shopping for someone in that price range in the back line. So, yeah, he's definitely one on the radar. And I suppose we won't get to see him with Dale in the team now, looks like, in the Amy series. But yeah, I'll have a close look at him when the Dogs play this week. So on Monday, the AFL captains gathered at Marvel Stadium, and we were down there to quiz them about their best breakouts and smokies for Supercoach this year. Let's take a listen.
Sam Clahessy.
Oh, Joel Frasier's probably my pick so far. Had a great pre-season. He'll play in our back line and he'll create good run and dash from there. So look out for Joel.
Breakout player for us, I'd get on Elijah Hewitt, I reckon. Yeah, I've mentioned his name a few times today, so I hope he doesn't watch too much of this and get his head big. But yeah, he might be ours.
Breakout. This is weird. I like to go someone that's played for a long time but that's randomly going to break out. So Harvey Langford's obvious, but I'm going to take Ed Langdon. I'm going to say he's going to start playing more mid-time and then he's going to get mid-numbers.
Yeah, we've got a few breakout players I think that will come on the scene. Like an Elijah Sardis would be a good pickup if you're playing Supercoach. I think Sam Durham will go to a new level as well, so he'll score heavily, be very impactful. And first year Isaac Kako as well. I think he'll be really fun to watch, and I think if you've got him in your team, you'll love some of the goals he kicks.
It's a tough one. I think Tom Brown will have a good year down back. Sam Banks is another one I think's had a really strong pre-season.
Ty Gallup, forward option, something a bit different. Obviously, Levi's the obvious answer for everyone, but I'll go with Ty, and Will Ashcroft will spend a lot of time in the midfield.
I think Matty Johnson has a chance to break out. Corey Wagner as well in the half-back line. I think he can cement his spot in the team and to be your half-back and get a few cheap stats.
I reckon Joe Berry, like a rookie pick, good value.
I reckon Daisy can get up to the 900k mark.
I reckon Josh Godo when he gets back from his hamstring injury.
I think, although we've seen some very good signs of him early, the Sia Wanganeen-Malira is probably the one that I would keep an eye on. He's just hot at the moment, and he's in for a big year.
There you go, some great mail. I obviously didn't know anything about that before I said Joel Frazier might be a chance to break out for the Bulldogs.
Of course not. Don't be silly. None of that.
I think we published that article 2 days ago.
Will Day 900k is incredible from the Sis Dog.
Yeah, get on. That's money we don't want to miss out on. But now into what the show is really about, which is your questions. And as I said, there's been plenty of those with all the carnage and news that's been happening during the week. So we'll run through them as quickly as we can and try and get as many answers as possible. But follow the SuperCoach accounts on socials to answer, and mine account, I suppose. You can follow me too at Al_Superfooty to get your questions in for next week and as we go throughout the season. But we'll just go around the table. Start with you, Patch. We're talking about backline uncertainty and maybe looking for someone who's a bit cheap but can score okay. Someone's asked, looking at the challenge with backline rookies, would you pick someone with certainty in their role, no vest, best 22, e.g. Wayne Miller at 254k?
I don't like that. It's just such a weird dead zone where you're not going to make an awful lot of cash at 250k, and I would either rather have a rookie or like a genuine mid-pricer. You spoke about some before with like Mills and, well, not Mills anymore, but like a Perryman, Fraser, Weddle. So like someone in that ilk I'd rather go to instead of a 250k guy who might average like 70 if you're lucky. Like it just... I don't know, I'm not a huge fan, and I think the rookies are slowly coming along. We've got Pryor, we've got Bo Allen, Zach Reid. I'm really keen to see if Caleb Smith can get a run. I'm not as worried about the backline rookies as some others are. I think there's still possibly some juice to squeeze out of that lemon down back. So I think we hold fire and we don't quite panic just yet and look at a 250k guy. Just yet. I think you try and go above that or below that, and I think it's that weird dead zone.
Yeah, I think there's, we get a little bit spoiled by the some of the rookies that are available this year that we hope are going to score really well. But, every year in Supercoach, you've got to start a couple of guys on the field who might only score 60s. And if you do that, we're picking a Bo Allen or a Zach Reid or something in defence, they're solid, scores every week.
60 is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
60 is fine.
Especially if it's only, for the first few rounds, especially when best 18 will help, those will probably drop off anyway. So, I wouldn't be hitting panic stations just yet. Chloe, this was an interesting one. Would you take Gawn and Chera or Will Day and English?
Yeah, this question, it really haunted me because they're all players that I've looked at, and at the moment 3 of them are in my team. The one who is not in my team is Tim English, who I'm very much considering bringing into my team. So I think they're all good options in terms of those exact pairings, Gawn and Chera or Will Day and English. Look, it's just such a difficult question because I would like to have all of them, as I just said. But English, I think, yes, he's had a bit of a hindered preseason this year with that ab injury, but I still think he's going to have a pretty good year. So you've got that. You've got the uncapped potential of Will Day. He could finally average over 100 this year. But then at the same time, you've got Gawn, just as he said at Captain's Day, he's one of the best Supercoach picks of the last 10 years, he said so himself. So can't ignore that, averaging 124 last year. And then Adam Chera, who we all know can have quite a high ceiling, did average 108.
We need an answer.
We do need an answer. I think I'd have to go Gawn and Chera just for the safety of it. But it's hard. It's difficult. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'd pick those two as well. I think Gawn is got a pretty good margin on English. And then the other two, I think, could both be good sort of sub-premium, I guess, kind of picks. I mean, Tim, where do you think Chera is at? We haven't heard much about him for a little while, but I know a few people who are definitely keen on him early in the preseason. And then you can take the next question as well, which is if you had one mid-spot left, would you take Hugo Garcia or Nod, being, I think, Nathan O'Driscoll?
I don't think Chera's a bad pick, but I think Will Day is a great pick. From round 10 to 20 last year, Will Day averaged 114, and then he dropped off in those last 3 games. I think he got tagged in one, got hurt in another, and he was playing injured in another one of those games before he sort of finally called time on his season. Well, he might have come back in finals, but certainly on his Supercoach season. So, I think Will Day, out of that group of guy, apart from Clayton Oliver, is sort of the second best of those 400 to 500k guys that could potentially be season keepers. So if I could get Will Day, and if it meant going Tim English over Max Gawn, I would do that. I think Nathan O'Driscoll's quite clearly one of the best elevated price rookies this year, and for the extra 50k he can save, I'd be pretty happy taking him over Hugo Garcia if it was out of those two. Looks like he's in Freo's best team. He's got a pretty nice role playing on the wing, and plenty of people have been throwing up his waffle finals numbers. I don't take as much notice of that, but he moved really well against the Indigenous All-Stars. And again, I don't really care about what the scores were in that game because there was about 86 players that took the field, but he did score quite well in that game as well. But more than anything, he moved really well and seems to be over some of those issues that he had that limited him last year. So 198k, I don't think he can go wrong. He's a pretty easy M7, M8 option if you can get him that deep in your midfield.
Yeah, don't mind that at all. Someone's directed a question at me. Riddle me this, Al. I thought they were going to ask about, is it Aiden Riddle at Freo? But the question is actually, is Jordan Ridley over his preseason injury and is he a viable option down back? Well, I guess he is because he played last night and he scored over 100 Supercoach points. So that sort of ticks the first one off. And I must admit, when I saw him, I thought, I kind of forgot about him. And I am in the market for maybe, my backline's a bit of a shambles at the moment, but, still not 100% sure who's going to fill those D2, D3 slots. But then I remembered picking Jordan Ridley in the past, and it's gone spectacularly pear-shaped more than once. No question that he can score, but his body is obviously extremely unreliable, so I'm going to stay away. But, Patch, would you talk me out of that?
No, I think the body issue is one that Essendon's very aware of as well. So if he does, I don't think they'll be afraid to give him a week off or 2 weeks off if he needs it, even preemptively, just because he's so important to our side. And also, we're not playing finals this year, so it's not like we need
Sure? After last night?
No, I think I found the lid. I found the lid in the last 20 minutes.
Can I throw that in? I'll put Ridley in. I really like it. I just think he's just a gun at Supercoach. Kick-ins, intercept marks. Played 69% game time against the Cats, and he scored about 110 ranking points. Like he doesn't miss targets. He just ticks just about every box. I wish he was about 50k cheaper, like 550k. I don't love. Like I thought he might have been around that 525, 30k mark. But the thing that is sort of deterring me from going through with it is the fact that I've also got Pryor and Zach Reid tentatively in my back line as well, and Essendon's got one of those early buys. So
I was about to segue into
18 some of those weeks, and if I'm trying to fit Pryor, Reid and Ridley into my back line, I think it's round 4 Essendon has a week off, and even though it's only 2 teams, I can see that getting real tough real quickly if 3 of my defenders are missing the same buy.
Yeah, I was about to segue that into the next question at risk of jumping in front of Al, how many primos or keepers per round can miss the early buy. And I think it does depend on how many other players you've got because, looking at, Essendon, we've spoken about 5 rookies. It's almost early Gold Coast GW West days where you just pack your side with rookies from one team and then you've got to figure out how to cover them in the bye. And then if you're going with Will Day, Essendon and Hawthorn share that bye. Zach Merritt is also still a relatively... He hasn't really left my side all pre-season, but now I'm starting to look at it and go, well, if I'm missing Zach Merritt and Will Day and I'm missing 5 of my rookies, that's now down to, 24, which best 18, I'd still have a full side. But if I'm missing, two premiums and then 2, Sardis would hopefully be a higher scoring rookie, is that then enough of a hit? And I think it does depend, in terms of how many primos you're missing. It does depend on how many rookies you have as well and how many you're missing in total. So I think if you've got 1, absolutely no issue. If you've got 2 and they're on different lines, I think that's absolutely fine. Once you start getting towards 3 primos or 2 primos and a bunch of rookies, then I think you've really got to start thinking, how much is this going to impact my score? How much will this change, hunting for rank? If you're playing league, it doesn't matter. Just go with your gut if you're just looking to beat your mates in the office. But I think if you're looking at ranking and scoring as much as possible, I think that's where I land, where that round 4 bye is suddenly becoming far more troublesome than the round 3 bye we're expecting to be an issue. Because, if you don't have the guys to cover those primos with decent scores, then that becomes the spot where I think you really take the hit, as opposed to missing you're just missing Bailey Smith and Harry Perryman, for example. You're probably going to be fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, we're talking about round 3 bye. Callum Mills was one that was causing maybe some headaches there, but now he's out. And question with Mills out, who is a good replacement that's not a rookie? Throwing up names like Max Holmes, obviously he's a little bit more expensive, or Trent Rivers at Melbourne. Are they viable options, or is there anybody else? I suppose in that, if you could get up to another primo or that sort of 500k range, but maybe above, say, 400. We mentioned a couple of names in those smokies, but anyone else you like there, Tim? What do you think of Rivers as a midfielder at the Ds?
No, I really like Trent Rivers. He's in like the Josh Worrell sort of bag for me. I don't know why. He's one of those guys that I've always watched and just thought there's something about this bloke. I didn't think necessarily that he was going to transition into the Melbourne midfield and become a bona fide midfielder, but I thought even at halfback, there was just something about him that I really liked. So I think he's a really good value. The issue being that he's a defender in a stacked defensive class in Supercoach this year. I don't feel like defence is somewhere where we necessarily need to go digging for value options too much, because there's some pretty clear, I think it's sort of like the first 12, 13, 14 maybe that you think the top 6 is going to come from. And then after that, it probably falls away to the next bracket. You think Rivers is maybe in that camp. Is he good value? Yes, but there's probably guys like Joel Freesia that you flagged earlier that might score similarly, at least early in the season, that are 100k cheaper. So I'd probably be looking for a bit more value there, even if you wanted to go further down. If Ari Schoenmaker, if he does find his way into St Kilda's team early on in the season, he's the type of guy that might make you some cash and score just as well as a Rivers type. So they're the sort of guys I'm looking at. I just wanted to back over the early buys as well, because I'm going to play devil's advocate. I think we're making way too big a deal of them. I just think best 18 early on, if you're picking these rookies like O'Driscoll types that are on field, like Levi Ashcroft that you think is going to play most weeks, fielding 18 is not going to be that hard. Like Pat said, 18 of 24, that's 6 scores that you're dropping. If you're losing 5 or 6 guys one week, unless they're all premiums, it's really not that big a deal. So I think people don't need to take as much notice of the early buys, apart from the round 3 one, when there's 4 teams missing. I think apart from that, I wouldn't let the early buys sort of sway your thinking too much. And yes, if you're 50-50 between picking a guy that doesn't have a buy and picking one that does have one, you're always going to go for, say, a Bontempelli over Dacos, because you get that extra score out of Bont early on in the season. But if you're tossing up Harry Perryman and whether you're going to put him into your team or not, I wouldn't let the buy be the deciding factor as to whether you pick Perryman or not. I think you're still going to be able to field 18 pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I quite like Perryman. I think he's a decent shout. But Chloe, have you worried about the early buys at all in your millions of different iterations of your team?
I started to get a little bit worried about buys when I had thought about it not at all, and I had a team full of people on the early buys. But no, I would agree with Tim there, especially when you forecast to the later buys as well. I just think those ones your team could look completely different. But in terms of the early buys, I would tend to lean on the side of what Tim said, and that's just, you still get some good scores. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. If you're really interested in a player, I would say go for it. But obviously check your team balance first. But
But like if you're picking like Sam Davison, or if you're picking Kako, and then you're worried about them not being there in round 3 to potentially be part of your best 18, like why are you picking them? You want rookies that are going to be in the team for at least a month, you'd think. I know that they can be volatile. They might be managed one week, but a lot of these guys that we're picking because we think they're like a Kako is going to be best 23 most weeks. So I think when you're ticking off your 18 and going, okay, do I have 20 this week so I've got some insurance, you'd want to be factoring in those rookies early in the season. It's that period after we get through those early buys, like you're talking round 7, round 8, when they might start to get managed or they're out of the team because their form has dropped off a little bit and they're getting tired. So, I just think we're making way too much of these early buys. Might come back to bite me, but I wouldn't let it be too big a factor in my sort of final makeup of my team.
Yeah, well, I think last year when I was choosing my rookies, I did probably maybe consider it a bit too much. And then after you pass through that period, you do get left with some rookies who maybe their cash gen isn't the greatest, maybe their role isn't as secure as someone you would have picked if you weren't stressing over it. So, I would agree.
Perhaps this question's got you written all over it. We've already mentioned Will Day, and we're fans of him, but someone's asked, would you pick him or Dylan Shield? Similarly priced, but can only have one.
I would pick literally any other player in the competition over Dylan Shield. Cohen Livingston, come on down.
That is one of the most disgusting questions I've ever heard. Will Day or Dylan Shield?
What did you make of Dylan's game last night? He had plenty of the ball there at halfback.
Yeah, I wish he hadn't. Certainly wish he hadn't had much of the ball.
Did he score 60 Supercoach from close to 30 disposals? Like that is...
Yep. Like I thought Nick Martin was frustrating last year. Dylan Shield, he's mid-only. He has an early buy. I think if it's real, which it is, I don't think it is, and you can clip that, we'll just sort it out after the buy. He won't be too expensive if he's a must-have, or wait after the buy, wait for DPPs to happen. Round 6, then sure, if Dylan Shield's a must-have, then, I'll scream into the void and then pick him. But don't make me think about picking him now. Just don't. Don't
Dylan
do
Shield
it.
being a must-have is not happening. He's not going to be a must-have in defence. He's not going to be a must-have as a midfielder. Doesn't kick the ball well enough to be Supercoach relevant.
Yep, agreed. And Will Day's getting 900k. We heard it from his captain himself.
You don't think Dylan can get there?
Yeah, well, didn't hear Zach Merritt talking up Dylan Shield as a smoky Supercoach pick. So says it all, really.
So no player has ever hit 800k, but Will Day is going 900k this year.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Lock it in.
I think he needs to average about 180 from round 1. So
well, maybe. He's more of a chance than Dylan Shield is.
Put the VC on him.
Chloe, can you keep track of what we went through the 2 names comparing before, but we've got 3 here for you. So if you can remember this, you've got Clark, Holmes and Sicily. So we're talking defence, so I'm guessing this is Jordan Clark, Max Holmes and Sicily, or Harry Sheezel, Tom Stewart and Colby McKercher. Do you have a preference of those 3 packs?
If I just go on gut feel, I would say the first option. But when I run through my team and I'm looking at the people who I have as locks in each line, Harry Sheezel is probably my number 1. So I hate to leave him off by the wayside there, but I just like the sound of that first group of players. Not that I have any of them in my team at the moment, but I like that group of players. It's very interesting. I just don't know how much money you'd really have left for some other people around your team if you've got Clark, Holmes and Sicily. But I don't know. It's interesting.
What did we make of Max Holmes? Because it's his midfield this year, but I kind of expect him to have a bit more of a say on the game and stamp himself down a bit more. I know Lee Montagne's spoken about, you don't get too worried about guys not scoring well in preseason games. But what did we think?
Well, personally, I wasn't too concerned. I just probably had that mindset of, it is just a bit of a preseason game. So I personally don't have too many doubts about the levels that he may be able to go to this year. Averaged about 99, I think it was, last year. So I think he's pretty well poised to go above that, just due to natural progression and then also, just taking charge of that midfield.
Not worried by a 51, are we, Tim?
No, couldn't care less, Patch. Preseason games. Up against the might of Elijah Sardis. not going to get many
Ben
tougher
Hobbs.
matchups than Sardis this year.
Well, I mean, again, we don't want to rate preseason matches, but one guy on that list that I actually quite liked watching him last night was Tom Stewart. I think he sort of just dropped right off the radar. I think Dan Batten mentioned him in one of our preseason shows as a bit of a pod because everyone's forgotten about him. He caught some heavy attention last year and then maybe moved into the midfield for a while, but now it seems like he's just back in defence, taking kick-ins. They weren't a lot of kick-ins on offer in that game, but I think he took at least one of them.
There were 2 kick-ins on offer.
So, you think you might get more of those during the season. But, again, that round 3 buy is really annoying because his price is around the 520K mark.
521K is very tasty.
Yeah, and I think now that he's got that extra string to his bow that he can go into the midfield if they want to use him there or if maybe to shake a tag or something. I would just
CBAs
expect him to
as well.
Yeah, there you go.
He's got that good role, but
fully expect him to go back to that sort of 105, 110 maybe type.
As soon as he starts to dominate games, he's just going to get tagged now. I think teams saw how susceptible he is to a tag. As soon as someone went and sat on him, he either got angry and started taking his frustration out on his tagger, or he just went completely out of the game and had to go and Chris Scott had to come up with something to shake that tag, and eventually it was throwing him in the midfield, which worked quite well. But I don't think he's going to be top 8 again. I think those days of Stewie being a sort of top 8 defender have passed us, and I might be wrong there, but I just can't see it happening. He's got St Kilda round 2, so I would think Mitch Owen's probably going to go and sit on him and annoy him as he has done in the past. So yes, he might get a few more kick-ins, but I think don't think Stewie's going to be in that sort of top echelon of defenders this year. Can I back over again Harry Sheezel, because I'm trying to find, like, I know that we all sit here at this time of pre-season and try to pick holes in like the top line of premiums and go, all right, find me some reasons that I'm not going to pick this guy. But like, is there a genuine case to leave him out? Because like we're paying, I think, for an average of 118, which is probably around, like, he might finish around there. So like, but you're paying absolute top dollar from the start for him, whereas there's so many sort of good options in that 550 to 600K bracket. Like, am I working too hard to find reasons not to pick Sheezel? Should I just pay up, or is there a genuine option that I could go someone like Jordan Clark, for example, that doesn't have an early buy and go, okay, he might average 10 less than Sheezel, but where I spend that extra money might make all the difference, and I can get Sheezel for less than 600K at some point.
Unless you can't get him for less than 600K. I just think he's a player that I'm going to want in my finished team. I think the price isn't too outrageous that I'm not willing to pay it. And, he's Harry Sheezel. What more can I say, really?
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a very risky move to leave him out. Even I'd probably leave Bont out before Sheezel, because I just think there's some, he's much more expensive, and there's other midfielders who you could argue could get within, a few points of him. But yeah, I think Sheezel's pretty clear standout in the back line. And last year, I think it was 130 was his average in the last 4 games when he played that sort of hybrid mid-forward role, which is probably what he's going to do this year. So, I think he can go to another level again, and it'd be wouldn't be a lot of fun watching that if you didn't have him in Supercoach and everybody else did.
I think if you compare him to a Bont as well, like Bont will probably just continue to pump out the numbers he always has. Maybe he would get better, maybe he would get a little bit worse, but yeah, Sheezel's on that arc of just getting better, in my opinion, so I wouldn't be personally willing to take that risk.
Question I can answer very quickly here, asking about are we a chance to see Brodie Grundy return to his best this season? With his injury news today, unfortunately, it sounds like probably not. I don't hate the thought of it, though. We know he has been a sort of a 110 guy in the past, but if you're looking for someone in the ruck. But, probably not going to be him after this.
I mean, it certainly could be if it's just a little knock.
Well, that's true. I mean, we don't know how bad it is.
If he's limping from the field, I think that's generally a better sign than him being carried off or hobbling off or... I think, I don't know.
Until
if you're going to...
stops giving away 5 free kicks a game.
Yeah.
He's not
I think if you're paying up in the
ruck...
if you're paying up in the ruck, you're going either Gawn or Cherry or Tom de Koning or maybe a Lloyd Meek or something. Like, I just don't think that... Just don't play funny buggers in the ruck. Just say it with me, folks. Set and forget. Don't worry, don't muck around in the rucks. It's not fun. It's never paid off for anyone. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Patcher, while you're ranting, another question on the defence. Just pick Sicily or Bailey Dale. Well, we're assuming Bailey Dale's fit in this.
Bailey Dale. I'm just worried about
Sicily.
Yeah, I'm just worried about Sicily maybe being thrown forward, maybe just having a kind of undefined role. I just don't have a good feeling about James Sicily, and I can't quite put my finger on why. Even though he plays in sleeves, big raps for that. But I'm just kind of without a really defined role. I think there's kind of a danger that maybe he ends up forward depending on matchups, and Hardwick goes back or someone else goes back, and I'm not particularly interested at this stage unless we see something clearly defined.
Yeah, he's not in my team right now. He has been for decent chunks of the preseason. The price I just find very tempting.
There are other people I'd rather.
That would make me nervous.
He's one of those guys you've got to catch at the right time. Like, he's going to have a month where he averages 130 when Barras goes down for a month with some of the issues that he's had in the past or something, and an opportunity opens up to, like, Carl Amon misses a few games and he just takes 12 kickouts a game. But it's just going to be about timing, I think, with him and getting on at the right time as opposed to...
You could also miss a month
starting with him.
So...
Well, yes.
I think if you're looking for consistency, he might not be the man.
No. He's the type of guy that could score 170 one week, and then Sam Mitchell goes, okay, we need an extra forward option because things just aren't working down that end of the ground, and then he scores 60 the next week. So... I think it would be a real roller coaster. You'd enjoy the good weeks, but there'd be some pretty bad ones as well.
And we just touched on Bont. So someone's actually asked about that, saying that the Dogs have a tough start to the year and he might lose some cash. And the question is there a case to start either Day, who we have talked about we really like, or Connor Rosie, who I can both see rising in value in the early rounds and close the gap, maybe able to swap to Bont before the mid-season buys? Tim, we were talking about Rosie offline over the last couple of days. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I think I bought him in last year. Like, I think I burned my last trade actually when he got down to about 400k, and I just thought, like, this is too good to be true. And he was okay. Like, he didn't set the world on fire, but like he really needs to go big early in the season, doesn't he? No Butters for probably a couple of weeks at least, so he's going to get bulk midfield time. He's the captain. Like
Richmond round 2.
There's such a spotlight on Port Adelaide with that handover and wanting to make sure it goes right. And Ken Hinkley coming out and saying we won't go down in the history of dud handovers like Collingwood and all these other ones that exploded. So I think there's so much focus on Port Adelaide that he's going to want to prove a point. And he's definitely one of those guys that you think. So he's 150k cheaper than Bont. Like, that's a pretty significant difference. That if you banked 150k, you could go from, like, let's say you had Jackson Pryor on field and he didn't get named round 1 for Essendon. Suddenly you've got a bit over 300k to spend and you can look at some more of those mid-price options that we've already talked about. So, I think it's a really interesting discussion, and I think Rosie could explode. Richmond's obviously a matchup that we're going to target this year, and as much as Uze tried to use Seth Campbell, I think, as a tagger late last year at different times as well. Who knows if that's going to eventuate when the Tigers have got their full midfield there with Hopper and Taranto and a few others. So, leaving Bont out would make me incredibly nervous, but then at the same time, I think history tells us that just about every player gets down to about 600k that starts over 600k. So at some point in the season, you're going to get Bont 50 to 80k cheaper, but just as easily saying that he could come out and average 130 for the first 6 weeks and make you look pretty silly. So
the cheapest Marcus Bontempelli got last year was 632k.
That's
so
the risk.
Is the Bont pain worth it to save 48k? Probably not.
I have a solution, which is how my team's set up at the moment, and that's have Bont and Rosie. Why not? I know it's not that easy, but that's what I have at the moment because I still think there's so much value in Rosie. I definitely think that, he had a couple of niggles last year. It wasn't his best year. I think that he's definitely underpriced, but I also think that Bont is a bit of a must-have. I understand the money cycle, and you may be able to get him a bit cheaper, but it's like the same thing that I said with Sheezel. I think that Bont is a bit less risky than Sheezel, but I've put myself in that position before where I've tried to fade someone with some big mathematical equation of when I'll bring them in, and then other people get injured and I just am not able to get them back in. So
Dogs don't have an early buy.
I still rate Rosie
as well. So Dogs don't have an early buy, so you're getting an extra score out of him. And I don't know about this hard early draw. They've got North Melbourne round 1, so North are improving a little bit, but I would expect
he is the hard early draw though, right?
And that's the thing. Like, I saw people trying to justify leaving out Tristan Cherry. Oh, they've got a hard early draw. Like,
that was
this guy was like far and away the best ruckman in Supercoach. Yeah, and when I say
I don't have
people,
Tristan Cherry right now.
certain people that have left Jason Horne-Francis out of their team are the ones that I'm referring to. Like, just trying too hard to probably like me and Sheezel, trying too hard to find reasons to justify leaving out these top premiums for the next line. But apparently Connor Rosie has made his way into my team as well, Chloe, just having a look. So,
well, that's a shame. I might have to trade him out.
I know. I think I think you make a really good point. Like, there's guys in that bracket. I like him. I like Dawson, and I like Will Day. There's sort of three in that 550 to 490k range that could potentially be top 8 come the end of the season. So that's why I've got them at the moment. But I need them to score as well as Zach Merritt to justify going down that path from the get go. So whether I'm confident enough that'll happen, we'll wait and see.
Yep. That's a really good discussion point. We can maybe revisit that in a week or so, but maybe I'll take this one, given it mentions the guy you just touched on as we get towards the end. A couple more questions. Question, pick the horny man, that's Jason Horne-Francis, or Sanders, and redistribute the cash in the back half, or pick an extra mid-rookie, keep the horny man, and no Peatling. So my opinion on Jason Horne-Francis has been fairly well documented on this channel, especially if you listen to the Phantom's Lair. At the moment, he's not in my team. I'm not saying I'm never going to pick him, and let's just see Port Adelaide. But especially with Zach Butters out, where does he fit in the midfield? I think it's going to be very hard to maintain this stance all the way through to round 1, but we'll see how we go. But I do think he's going to have a great year. He looks absolutely an unbelievable nick. So that's getting harder and harder to hold on with that one. But Peatling's the one that I am starting to question a little bit, just because of, as I was looking at, like you mentioned, Dawson there, Tim, and I'm with you on that I think he's underpriced and could be a great pick this year. But then I'm thinking, well, they've got heaps of midfielders in there. Matt Crouch is still hanging around. Dawson's always a chance to get thrown out to the wing or, pushed somewhere else. And then if he's no guarantee to get CBAs, can we rely on Peatling coming in? We've sort of basing some of our predictions on his stats at the Giants. When they gave him all these CBAs, he scored really well, but I'm not sure exactly where he fits into that mix at Adelaide. I think he'll probably play more half forward. I think he'll still go well. He's apparently flying in pre-season, laying all these tackles, looks amazing. But, will he sort of average 100? I think he's probably more like 90, So he's priced in the 70s, he averages 90, that's good. But is it enough to justify a spot? And then I think, could I pick, an O'Driscoll or somebody in that spot, save 150 grand, and that that gives me money to spend somewhere else. So that's one, doesn't really directly answer the question, but that is something I'm toying with at the moment. Patch, I know Peatling's been a favourite of yours for a while. Am I getting too nervous about nothing, or what do you think?
I absolutely love James Peatling, and I think he's fantastic. He's been in my side for all of 5 minutes this preseason. He just doesn't fit the price structure I want to go with, just doesn't quite fill a role of being he won't be a keeper. He's not a rookie. He's that mid-price stepping stone. And at this stage, I've got 2 of those in my side, and they're called Clayton Oliver and Will Day. I just can't fit him in, and I can't pick him ahead of those guys. I don't want, it's just, he's in, again, that weird no man's land, that weird dead zone where, maybe he averages 100 and maybe, he's a fantastic pick, but the way I'm set up at the moment doesn't really allow for that. And I think there's a lot of really good rookies in the midfield that I'd rather have them there and even go with a 300k guy somewhere else or try and redistribute the cash to get more rookies. I'm just not, I don't think Peatling is a must-have by any means, and I can't really fit him in. And on the flip side, I think Jason Horne-Francis is an absolute must. And, he'll be a top 3 forward. At minimum, he'll be a top forward at most, and this is as cheap as we're going to get him all year. Doesn't have an early buy, has a great run. Now with no Zach Butters for at least, round 1 or 2 of the season, will start the year like a house on fire. I, toyed with Jason Horne-Francis out of my team and an extra defensive premium for all of 10 minutes before hating how it looked enough that I just changed it back. I don't think, I think you absolutely keep the horny man and you ditch Peatling. I don't think it's a difficult question at all.
What about you, Chloe? You're a James Peatling truther from way back.
Yes, I am. He is in my team still, but I have also, similar to Al, been kind of mulling over it recently. I did actually try and take him out of my team last night, but then I just kind of had some random money I didn't really know what to do with. I wanted to use the money in my back line, couldn't really find an option of where to put it. I think the main thing with the Peatling decision is trying to fit in that extra mid-rookie, because obviously they should generate better cash than Peatling. And as you said, he is really at that awkward price point. But I couldn't really find the best option to kind of redistribute the cash, I suppose, for my team structure. So I brought him back in. He's still there. I think he will do a job. But you're right. He's not a rookie and he probably won't be a keeper. I've got a couple of those similar guys in my team, so I am still umming and ahhing, but he's there for now. I still like him.
All right, Tim, one for you, because I know this is a guy you like, and we've talked a lot about options down in defence, but this guy hasn't been mentioned at all, and he's in 1.4% of teams. Is Jeremy McGovern a sneaky pod? He'll be the main man now at the Eagles. The ball will be down there a lot. Should take a majority of kick-ins. Of course, Barras is gone. Liam Duggan's now midfielder, apparently. So why are we all ignoring Jeremy McGovern?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I just feel like at some point he's going to have to play like key back. No Tom Barras there to support him now. So, but I said that how many times did I say that last year? And he just ended up hogging kick-outs. Like I swear he just sat behind the post half the time and took about 15 kick-outs a game. As a non-owner, it was just the most infuriating thing to watch him play footy. So, yeah, maybe it could work, but like history will tell us, he played 19 games last year, which was his best for a fair while. So he's going to break down at some point. He's probably going to score well when he's out there.
After about 3 of those games.
Yeah, so he just finds ways to get himself hurt or get himself injured. So I could see that potentially blowing up. At that same price, like not wanting to throw too many names out there because I know that we're about to wrap up, but Dane Zorko is around that same price, and you all know how I feel about Dane Zorko.
Yeah, talk about forgotten men.
He's 1K more expensive than McGovern. Kadeen Coleman's not going to be there for at least the first month of the season, so he's probably just going to rack up Pill for fun in the back half, and it would not shock me at all if he came out and scored 140 in the opening round and people were clamouring to find ways to get 590k to fit him into their team. So I'd probably go for Zorko over McGovern, but they're both absolute seagulls that love kick-ins, and that's how you score points in Supercoach as a defender. So, yeah, them and Luke Ryan are the best at it, and either of those are probably going to start the season well, but I'd go Zorko over McGovern for probably durability, but both of them are pushing mid-30s now, so who knows how long their bodies are going to hold up.
I did put Zorko in my team last night, and then that thought crossed my mind, and I thought, Kitty will come back eventually. Maybe it's better to go to a Whitfield or someone, so that's what I've done. But I can see the thinking there. I was talking about Dane Zorko last week, but in terms of longevity, I'm not quite sure it's there. But over McGovern, I would say, yeah, I agree.
I think Jack Sinclair's a much better option than them both, but like he's had an interrupted pre-season, hasn't he? So question marks about whether you can pick him or not. But yeah, if it was out of those three, I'd pick Sinclair by a country mile. But yeah, he's got question marks over him, like about half the competition that have managed to get injured in this pre-season.
Yeah, exactly. That is what we have to deal with now in Supercoach and over, as I say, the next 15 days. We count down to round one. We've got opening round coming up next week or so. Jeez. But that, of course, doesn't count officially in Supercoach, but we'll be watching very closely to see how everybody goes. You can still make unlimited trades all the way through to round one. A reminder too, to make sure you check out, everybody's got a free trial at the moment for Supercoach Plus. So we spruik it all the time, all the great features on there, the break-evens and ownership stats and live trades and all these things. So make sure you make use of all that while the trial is in operation for the first couple of rounds, and see what you like, because
do you get scores in round 0, Al? Is that right? Opening round?
Yeah, we will have live scores in round 0, yep. So check that out. And we've got all the scores for the Amy games just online, certainly from last night. They're already up, and we'll try and get those up as soon as we can after the siren for each of those games as well. So absolutely plenty happening. Hopefully not too many more injuries, and we can just get some rookies that bob up that we haven't been expecting, which is always nice when that happens around this time of year. We might be handy to get one or two in the back line, if just putting it out there to the Supercoach gods, but we know that's fraught with danger. But thanks, Tim, Chloe, Patch, for jumping on for another huge episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening and sending in your questions, and fire them in next weekend all the way through the season. But make sure you like and subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. Watch on Code Sports YouTube, and we'll catch you next week.